This is what freeloaders eat, old man. My son said this to me in front of 43 people on the afternoon of my 70th birthday. He was smiling when he said it. He had wrapped the gift himself. The corners uneven, tape folded back on itself, the kind of wrapping that performers do when the gift is the performance. Inside, a ceramic bowl. Pet store quality, paw prints painted around the rim. In the center, in cheerful block letters, "Good boy." I turned it over in my hands. The price sticker was still on the bottom. $7.99. Next to the bowl, a can of dog food, beef and vegetable, premium brand, for adult dogs. The living room went quiet the way rooms do when everyone understands something terrible has just happened, and no one knows where to put their hands. 43 people, his aunts, my old crew from Callahan Construction, the neighbors from Tuscany, Gerald and his wife flown in from Kelowna, caterers along the far wall, a chocolate cake with the right number of candles. Nathan leaned close enough that I could smell his cologne. "Go on, Dad," he said, still smiling. "You've been eating at my table for long enough." I looked at the bowl. The good boy caught the afternoon light. I looked at my son, and then I did the thing he had not planned for. I smiled back. I reached into my jacket pocket, the gray sport coat Irene had given me for our 32nd anniversary, and took out my phone, found the number, pressed call. 2 rings. "Owen," I said. "It's Frank. Go ahead." I set the phone face up on the table next to the dog bowl so the room could hear. Then I picked up my glass and waited. Let me tell you what Nathan didn't know. My name is Frank Callahan. 37 years building Callahan Construction. My crew stayed with me for decades. I sold the business in February 2023 for $2.4 million. 68 years old, bad knees, and a left shoulder rebuilt twice. My wife Irene had died 4 years before that. Ovarian cancer. The house on Pump Hill felt wrong without her. I sold it and moved into a rental in Beltline. What came next was Nathan. He called in April 2023. The pitch was warm, and he delivered it well. I found out later it had been Claudia's script, but Nathan didn't need much persuading. He came downstairs the following week with the basement lease already printed. His number $1,800. He'd done the Nolan Hill research himself. Brochures, a site visit, a holding deposit 6 months before I knew the place existed. Claudia opened the door. Nathan walked through it with the lease in his hand. I moved in that May. I paid rent. I told myself I was contributing. I understand now I was being positioned. For the first 6 months, it was fine. I fixed the fence gate. Drove Paisley to swimming. Replaced the water heater myself. Didn't ask to be paid back. I bought the groceries twice a month. The good stuff, the kind Irene used to buy, and left them in the kitchen without comment. The shift started around November 2023. It was small at first. Nathan started making remarks in front of Claudia, about how much hot water I used, about finding me in the kitchen when he wanted the kitchen to himself. "Dad, we talked about the parking. And Dad, I'd prefer you let us know when you're having someone over." By March 2024, Nathan raised the rent to $2,200. He came downstairs and told me himself, not Claudia, Nathan. He said the market had shifted. He said it evenly, without apology, the way a man does when he's rehearsed it. I paid without comment. I noted that he chose March, the month Irene died. By September 2024, Claudia had stopped setting a place for me at Sunday dinner, not with an announcement, just quietly, the way a chair disappears from a table, and nobody says anything. One evening I came upstairs for a glass of milk, and heard Nathan say, not knowing I was there, "He's dead weight. You see that, right? He just sits down there." I went back downstairs with my glass. I want to be honest about what that sentence did to me. I sat at the basement table, and didn't move for a long time, not out of shock. I'd felt the shift building for months. But there's a difference between sensing that someone has changed their mind about you, and hearing them say it aloud in a voice that carries no apology, no hesitation, no awareness that you might be within earshot. That was the difference between suspicion and knowledge. I thought about Irene, about the fact that she had loved Nathan in the particular way mothers love difficult sons, clearly, without condition, with full knowledge of what he was. She never excused it. She just kept the door open and hoped he'd walk through it straight. She died before she had to find out he wouldn't. I thought 37 years. And the word he chose was wait. And I thought that was the moment I stopped waiting for him to be different. Not the moment I stopped loving him. I want to be careful about that. But something shifted. Something structural. The way a beam shifts when the load changes, and you feel it in the floor before you see it in the wall. I wasn't his father hoping for better anymore. I was a man making a decision. The worst moment came in December. Claudia's parents visiting. I came upstairs Saturday morning and found a breakfast tray outside my basement door. Toast. Orange juice. Instant coffee. The kind you leave outside a hospital room. Through the kitchen door, the four of them laughing. Bacon. Something baked. I left the tray, went downstairs, called Owen Marsh. I need you to do a few things, I said, quietly. Some of you will say I should have left that night. Some of you will say I stayed too long. I didn't tell Owen everything. I didn't need to. When I told him a tray had appeared outside my basement door, he didn't ask me to explain what that meant. He just started moving pieces. The business sale proceeds went into the Callahan Family Trust. Irene and I had set it up in 2019. Paisley and young Owen were the beneficiaries. Nathan had never been in it. The Airdrie duplex rental property Nathan had never once asked about was already in the trust. $3,000 a month it paid me. Nathan thought I was living on savings. I opened a new account at a credit union on 17th Avenue. Different institution from anything Nathan had ever touched. The bank is the problem, Owen said. You filed the complaint quietly. No police report, no immediate claim. That was smart. It gave us time to build the file. But it also means the bank is in under review limbo until we push. I need 60 more days to make it airtight. I told him to take them. Nathan's under pressure, and pressure makes people move. Whatever came next, he'd show me before spring. The Nolan Hill deposit arrived in November. Nathan's card, Nathan's signature. The capacity assessment email to Owen came January 9th. The dog bowl came February 22nd. He showed me the whole plan in sequence. He just didn't know I was watching. 3 weeks before my birthday, I came upstairs to get a glass of water at 11 at night. Nathan and Claudia were in the kitchen. They hadn't heard me, and he'll have nowhere to object. Claudia was saying. Her voice was the one I'd heard her use with difficult clients at the salon. Efficient, pleasant, final, 40 people in the room. His old crew, Gerald. He's not going to make a scene in front of Gerald. He needs to understand this can't go on, Nathan said. He understands. He just needs to be told there's no other option. A pause. The place in Nolan Hill has a suite opening in April. Nathan put the deposit down in November. We just haven't told him yet. You already someone had to move first. I stood very still in the dark hallway. There it was. Not Nathan's plan. Claudia's plan, with Nathan executing it. I had misread the architecture of the thing for 2 years. I went back downstairs without my water and texted Owen at 11:14 p.m. It's time. Birthday is February 22nd. Nathan hired a caterer. He sent out proper invitations. The digital kind, with a photo of the two of us from Christmas 2022, before everything shifted. He arranged flowers and cake, and flew Gerald and his wife in from Kelowna. The guest list was deliberate. Nathan had thought about it. His aunts, both of whom wrote him into their wills. His neighbors from the street, who knew me as the quiet man in the basement. My old crew from Callahan Construction. Devlin Martinez, 4 of the original framers. People whose presence would make the room feel like a witness stand. He wanted to be watched as the generous son. He wanted me to be watched as the problem that had been solved. 43 people filled his living room on a Saturday afternoon. I wore the gray sport coat Irene had given me for our 32nd anniversary. I shook hands and accepted cards, and hugged people I hadn't seen in years, men from the crew who clapped me on the shoulder, and asked how I was keeping. I let Paisley draw me a picture of a birthday cake with 17 candles because she couldn't count to 70 yet. I held it like it was worth framing, because it was. I was very calm. That calmness wasn't strategy in the moment. It was just what was left after 18 months of deciding. Strategy had already been done. What remained was simply waiting for Nathan to do what I already knew he would do. Nathan gave his speech first. He talked about what family means. He talked about sacrifice and gratitude, and doing right by the people who raised you. He looked at me while he said it, with the face of a man who believed every word, which was, I think, the most honest Nathan had been in a long time. He did believe it. He believed the sacrifice was his, the gratitude should be mine, and the dog bowl was in some version of the story he'd been telling himself, a kindness. Then he picked up the wrapped box and brought it to the table. The speakerphone sat face up on the party table. Owen's voice came through clearly. "I'm ready when you are, Frank." I looked at Nathan. His smile had gone somewhere, not completely. He was still performing, but it had changed shape, become uncertain. A man who has stepped onto ice, he thought was solid. "Owen," I said, "please send the letters." "Already sent, email and registered mail. The mortgage co-signer on record is your son. The lender has been copied." I heard someone in the back of the room say, "Quiet, not meant to carry." "Nathan, what is this?" "My signature on that mortgage document was forged," I said. "I reported it to the bank 14 months ago. They kept it under review while Owen completed the file. The review is now closed." A woman near the window made a sound. Not a word, just a sound. "I also own your truck," I said. "You've been making payments on a vehicle that's titled in my name, every month for 4 years." Claudia took one step back. One deliberate step, not panic, not collapse. The movement of someone recalculating. "One more thing," Owen said. "I've filed a formal response to the capacity assessment inquiry submitted to my office on January 9th. The inquiry is documented and accompanies the mortgage correspondence." I heard Gerald, from across the room, say quietly, "Good God." Nathan's face changed. Not the smile, something below the smile. The thing the smile had been built on top of. "What I would like," I said pleasantly, "is a conversation this week about what comes next. But not today." I looked at the room, at the old Callahan crew along the wall, men who had poured concrete with me for 30 years, who were looking at Nathan the way tradesmen look at a failed inspection. "Today is my birthday." I picked up the dog bowl. "Would someone throw this away for me?" Gerald caught it. Set it by the door like evidence. I knew even then that half the room would decide I had gone too far. My brother Gerald Callahan is 66 years old. He is a quieter man than me. He spent his career in municipal planning, a field that rewards patience, and he has never in his life raised his voice at a family member. He raised it at Nathan that evening. I was downstairs when I heard it through the ceiling. Not the words, but the shape of it. The sustained and forceful kind of tone that Gerald reserved for serious occasions, and that I had heard perhaps twice in my entire life. I didn't go upstairs. An hour later, Gerald came down and sat at my kitchen table, and accepted the coffee I made him and said nothing for a while. Then he said, "Irene would have had something specific to say about today. She would have said it in fewer words than I did." I said, "She would have said it to his face the first time he raised the rent." "Probably." Gerald was quiet for a moment. He's the kind of man who does his thinking before he speaks, which I've always respected even when it frustrates me. He turned his cup in his hands. "He told me, before the party," Gerald said finally, "when he called to arrange the flights. He said you'd been slipping, forgetting things, getting confused at appointments. He said he was worried, that he needed someone at the party who could help him manage the conversations if you became agitated." He set down the cup. I thought he was being overly cautious. I thought, "Frank's fine. Frank is always fine." I thought I was coming to support my nephew. I didn't say anything. He used me, Gerald said. He needed a witness with credibility. I said, someone who could confirm the narrative if I pushed back. Good God. He looked at his coffee. Nathan told me you'd been declining, mentally, that he was worried, that the independent living arrangement was because he didn't feel safe leaving you alone. He paused. He used the word deteriorating. I let that sit. He contacted Owen Marsh, Gerald said. January 9th. Owen forwarded it to me the same day. Subject line still visible. Capacity assessment. Callahan Francis D. The body asked whether there was legal basis for a formal evaluation. He stopped. Owen called you that afternoon. That's when I texted him. It was time, I said. Gerald was quiet for a long moment. He was going to have you declared. He stopped. Didn't finish. Yes, I said. Good God, Frank. I know. Where will you go? He asked. I've had a condo on hold in Mission since October, I said. 17th floor. Irene would have hated the height. I've always liked it. Nathan called me on Sunday. Then again Monday. I did not answer. On Tuesday he came downstairs and knocked on the suite door. I opened it. He looked different from the party. The suit was gone. He was in a gray sweater and jeans, and he hadn't slept well. I could see it in the set of his jaw, the flatness behind his eyes. He was trying to look like a man who'd been wronged, and almost managing it. We need to talk, he said. Owen has sent you a letter outlining the terms I'm proposing. I said, I'd recommend reading it before we have a conversation. Dad, read the letter, Nathan. I don't need to read a letter. I need you to understand that what happened Saturday was, I know what it was, I said. I'd still like you to read the letter first. He put his hand on the door frame. It was a half gesture, something between a plea and a claim. I looked at it and he saw me look and took it away. He left without another word. Wednesday Claudia sent me a long text message. It began with the word Frank rather than Dad, which told me everything I needed to know about whose idea the text was. It explained that they had been under financial pressure, that Nathan suffered from anxiety, that the birthday party had been meant as a wake-up call delivered poorly, that they loved me, that they hoped I understood. I read it twice. The financial pressure was real. I knew that. I had watched Nathan make choices. The truck, the private school, the ski trip to Whistler in January, that he'd put on the line of credit. I had watched those choices, and said nothing because he was my son, and I had hoped he would find his own way through. The forgery on the mortgage document was not anxiety. That was a calculation. I texted back. I've read Owen's letter. I hope you have 2.8 pages. 3 things. The mortgage forgery was documented and reported. Nathan had 90 days to refinance without me or sell. The lender had 30 days to issue a formal demand. I would not be co-signing anything. Not now. Not ever. The $45,000 I lent him in 2021, mentioned once never repaid, was now a formal promissory note with interest. Owen had kept the original notarized in his files for 3 years. Back rent, inflated beyond market rate, had been calculated and offset against what he owed. Gerald told me Nathan read it twice, then sat on his kitchen floor for 45 minutes. Paisley was 9. Owen the grandchild was 6. This was the part of all of it that I had thought about the most, and the part I had no clean answer for. On the Thursday after the party, Claudia brought both children down to the basement. She waited in the doorway while they came in. Before they entered, she said something I hadn't expected. Her voice was flat, not angry, not apologetic, just flat. Frank, you've made your point. I looked at her. Claudia, I made it 14 months ago. Nobody listened. She didn't answer. She stepped aside and let the children through. Paisley was carrying the birthday drawing she'd made, the cake with 17 candles. She'd added something since I'd last seen it. Small figures standing around the cake, stick people, one taller, one on the left side. She'd labeled Granddad in uneven capital letters. I sat on the couch with one of them on each side, and did not say anything about their parents. I told Owen the grandchild that the cake in Paisley's drawing was missing a candle, and that the correct number was 70. He counted the candles with considerable seriousness, and announced there were 15 and something had gone wrong. Paisley informed him that the other candles were on the back. I kept the drawing. Whatever happened between Nathan and me, whatever consequence arrived, whatever the lawyers sorted out, these two had done nothing. They would not be casualties of something their father had built, and their grandfather had let build for too long. I called the school on Friday, and confirmed that the grandchildren's tuition fund, established by me in 2022, held in a separate account in their names, was fully funded through graduation. Nathan had no access to it. He had never had access to it. I had been quiet, not absent. I moved into the Mission condo on April 3rd. The movers were gone by 2. I opened the balcony door and looked at the Elbow River beginning to thaw. It felt, for the first time in a long time, simply like the city, not like a thing I was being managed out of. The Tuscany house went in March. 9 days on market. Bank paid. Loan balance covered. Claudia's parents took the truck. The story that killed Nathan's career didn't start with a newspaper or a lawsuit. It started with Devlin, 19 years at Callahan Construction, who ran into a project manager at a site meeting 2 weeks after the party. The man had already heard. These things move fast in trades. Nathan's architecture firm placed him on administrative review in March, client relationship concerns, and let him go in April. I drove past the salon once, mid-March, on my way to Owen's office. The lights were off. A closed sign hung at an angle behind the glass, the kind that gets put up fast. One of Claudia's chairs was still visible through the window, pushed to the side. They're in Bridgeland now. 2-bedroom rental. The children share a room. He called me in April. Just to call. I didn't think you had it in you, he said. I know, I said. A silence. Then what was the plan if I hadn't done it? The bowl. If I'd just, you would have done it, I said. You'd been building toward it. That breakfast tray in December told me everything I needed to know about who you'd decided I was. He didn't argue. The kids' tuition is protected, I said. I'll be at Christmas if you want me there. He hung up without saying goodbye. I understood. Some things need a moment before words work again. He never apologized. Not once. Not. Gerald came to help me hang the pictures. Irene's paintings. The anniversary photograph. Paisley's birthday drawing in a navy frame. The drawing went in the kitchen, next to the window facing the river. 17 candles, said to be 70. One tall stick figure on the left, labeled in uneven capitals, Granddad. Before Gerald left, he asked me what I'd done with the dog bowl. Threw it away at the party, I said. The can. Still in the box, I said. In the basement. I'm keeping it. He looked at me. For the next time someone tries to tell the story of what happened here and gets it wrong, I said. He picked up his coat, shook my hand and left. I stood at the kitchen window for a long time after that, looking at the river, looking at Paisley's drawing. There's a specific kind of silence that only exists in a place that is entirely your own. I had forgotten what it felt like. Some people call what I did revenge. I call it correction.